Welcome to the Dream Team Tonic podcast. No Tony this week as he's on his honeymoon, but as usual, we have Ben. Are you there, Ben?
I'm here, mate.
And how's life on the ship treating you, me hearty?
Nightmare, 13-hour shifts. Dedication here. Still doing a pod after doing a 13-hour shift. And I'll be straight to bed and then back up again tomorrow.
And tonight we have a special guest in Tony's absence, Andy Barnett, who's been with us since the start and is a popular member of our Discord with his deep insights into Dream Team. Andy, are you there?
I'm here, James. Thanks a lot for having me on. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, we appreciate you coming on, mate. So let's do a few introductory questions, just so some people listening to this won't know who you are. So I'm going to kick off with, how long have you been playing fantasy football, mate?
Well, I've been playing since 1996 when I think that was the year that the Sun Dream Team actually launched. We started with 3 work colleagues, a sheet of A4 paper, a pencil and a rubber, and a burning desire to get the Sun newspaper at midnight on match days from a newspaper stand that was in between Leicester Square and Piccadilly Circus.
I remember those days.
You also needed a fiver in change to put in the fund, to do your transfers or put your team in as well. So it was those days before, mobiles had only just come out. But yeah.
I'm glad I missed them days.
Yeah. Up until now, I'd only worried about being in the mini league, but last year, by chance, I was looking at one of those dodgy Sun YouTube videos, and I left it playing. And the next video that came up was your pre-season team selections. So I continued listening, and here we are today.
Cool. I noticed some of those dodgy YouTube videos that you're referring to are getting more views than we are at the moment. I think we need to look at our SEO or something, but that's another story. Ben?
Andy, how did you get on last season?
Last season? It was there's not much for me to go on previous to that because, like I said, I was only concentrating on middle league sides. However, last season was the first season that I kind of took interest in trying to do as well in the actual full game. I had 2 teams in the top 1,000. The best team at Christmas was 134th overall. But unfortunately, when Chelsea came back from the Club World Cup, I had me and my infinite wisdom thought I'd need to make some changes to try and advance differentials, and I decided to put Chelsea defenders in, and obviously that put paid to my season. So my best team finished around 800th, but I did have 2 teams out of my 10 in the top 1,000. So I consider it a decent year, considering there are 500 to 700,000 teams in the game last year, I think.
That's a good season, mate. How would you describe your approach to playing Dream Team? Any tips for a successful season?
Yeah, well, my approach, I suppose the tips to my approach to playing Dream Team, in my explanation as to what I do, I'm fully engaged now. I take the fully engaged approach. I watch as many games as possible. I listen to podcasts and YouTube in small sessions. The best one, obviously, is Dream Team Tonic. That, to my mind, is really, a little bit of a plug for you there, guys. But it's the only one that goes in depth and the only one that comes out on a weekly basis, and there's not really much around. So you're out a mile in front of anything else that we can get. Also, I listen to other experienced people on different formats, like Fergie on the FF Hub Green Arrow. Now, I know it's nothing to do with Dream Team per se, but sometimes what they talk about, it kind of makes sense, when it comes to you thinking about players. So the only thing that I have to keep reminding myself is the different formats score differently. So sometimes when they talk about a player, they're talking about how many chances they have and shots on goals and defensive blocks. This doesn't really matter in Dream Team. All that matters is your ratings. I try not to feed too much information into my mind in one sitting. So I'll listen in shorter bite sizes, like if I'm going to work, if I'm going to the gym, go onto the Facebook Discord app. It's whenever you get free time. If you sit down and you start listening for 4 or 5 hours to different things and reading stuff, hardly any of it goes in and gets digested. So yeah, I also get involved in the conversations on the Discord. We've joined the Discord in the Dream Team Tonic's Discord. There's lots of different players that are on there. They've all got different perspectives on how things go. Even new players that are new to the game that come onto the Discord, sometimes they come up with something that you've never thought of yourself. Or it makes you think of something else, from what they actually say to you. So all the information from the different types of people I find is very enriching, it enriches the game itself. Always make sure that I try not to make decisions on a whim. It's like the first week's just completed now, so there's a lot of people talking in the Discord about, we need to get this player out, we need to get that player out. Before I do any of that, and I obviously think in those terms myself, but before I do any of that, I have to make sure that I actually think to myself, is that player needing to come out of my team? Or am I just making a knee-jerk decision? So I am quite calm in my decision-making and I try and reason things through. So in a nutshell, that's my approach to playing the Dream Team and the things that I actually do to get the best out of it.
Cool. Nice one. So moving on, what would you, Ben? What do you reckon? What are your takeaways from the first game week of the season so far?
Well, it looks like it's get Haaland in. If you haven't got him in most of your teams, he just looks good. What about you?
Andy?
Me, sorry, I do apologise. Well, Man U's pre-season form versus the form in the last game they just played in the league, like chalk and cheese. That's one of the things that I've been surprised at. Also, Villa, they had quite a poor game. I think it was against Bournemouth, wasn't it? Those are the negatives, what I've taken from the first game week. The positives are that Fulham look much stronger than the previous seasons when they've come into the Premier League. They look like they've got a little bit more bite to them. Spurs also look like they've got some kind of a killer instinct going on as well. There's also more players in Spurs that are getting up and getting involved in the action, either assisting goals or scoring goals or taking shots on goals. So those are the good and minus things that I have taken from the first week.
Yeah, United I'd agree with that one. They look great in pre-season. Martial gets injured. They had to move things around. Ronaldo seems to be still wanting away. Yeah, it's a bad start for them. I thought Brighton were great. They look brilliant. I was surprised at how strong Fulham looked. I think, to be honest, I think Liverpool was surprised at how good Fulham were, because I think they just turned up thinking they've just got to turn up, and they'll just win. Well, they got a massive surprise there, and I've never seen somebody bully Virgil van Dijk like that, which was a bit of a shock to the system. So yeah, I'm hoping Liverpool sort themselves out for the next game. Spurs, I mean, the Kulusevski's performance was out of this world. I watched the whole game. I watched the highlights, and I couldn't. It was just on a different level. I would say that performance was world class. Those fullbacks bombing forward, all of the attacking seemed to be coming from the fullbacks, which was bizarre. It's almost as if, Sonny had a few shots and blasted them over. Kane had a couple of chances, but most of the threatening play seemed to come from the wings, basically. Those fullbacks bombing forward. So I think we'll probably see a lot more of that this season, at least until other sides get wise to it. So yeah, it could be quite interesting to see how that one pans out.
Yeah, very interesting.
So let's have a look at your team, Andy. You've picked one of your teams for us to go through. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, no problem. The team that I've actually picked is the team that I initially thought would do the best throughout the season. So, not scored very much for the first week. It's only scored 36 points. It's not the worst score, but obviously it's not the best score. I've got Alisson in nets, Cancelo, Robertson, Sessegnon and Ake in defence. I've got Saka, Mahrez, Ruben Neves and Iwobi in midfield. And I've got Kane and Salah up front.
You've had a reasonable start with that team. It's better than mine, but we'll come on to that. Couple of enablers in midfield there. I see Neves and Iwobi. Do you want to talk us through your thoughts on why you picked those ones?
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, I actually have three enablers. Initially, what I want to try and do is to get as many good players in the team as possible to start off with, but with the Suns' pricing this year, it's really difficult to do that. So, yes, we're going to have some players in there. So, Sessegnon, the reason why he's an enabler in defence, that's down to Tony on the last podcast that I was listening to. Sessegnon was somebody that I sort of like dismissed because I thought, well, he's going to be playing second fiddle to Perisic, possibly as left wing back.
Yeah.
However, as it turned out, he did start. But the reason why I went to Sessegnon as an enabler was because obviously when we get talking, it's they always get subbed. Spurs are probably going to be one of the teams that are in the top four at the end of the season. They might actually do better on yesterday's performance. But if Sessegnon comes on just before the end of the game, he can pick up 5 points if they've got a clean sheet. He's also got attacking threat because when he played for Fulham when they were in the Championship, yes, they did play him as a high line winger, and he got quite a few goals for them. But the thing is, he knows where the goal is and he can score a goal. So, yeah, that's the reason why he's in. He's only 2 million. He should be going up at the end of this week, fingers crossed. Ruben Neves, an unusual pick. He's 2.5 million. I've put him in my team because basically the enablers that I have, I don't expect to be in my team for very long. All the other players are players that could potentially be there all season, depending on how things go. But Neves and Iwobi, I can take them out at any time. The tactics behind that are, let's just say, well, Neves got a rating, so he might go up by 0.1 million at the end of the week. He might stay the same. But if there's somebody else of a similar price point or a lesser price point, I can take Neves out if I think he's going to go down in value, and I can put somebody that's done well that week that's going to go up in value. And it doesn't really matter who it is, as long as the games that they've got coming up afterwards are games in which you think that they could get a return. And it's the same to a certain extent for Alex Iwobi as well. He's played in over 50% of the games last season. He played more towards the end of the season. He plays on the wings. He plays high up. So there's a good chance that you might get an assist or a goal from Iwobi when he's playing for Everton. Not that Everton did much yesterday. However, they've got a good 4 fixtures coming up afterwards where, providing Iwobi continues playing, he could bring some points in. But the main thing is, the two enablers in midfield, I've gone for midfield as opposed to defence because the lower value players, they're normally in a bad team, so they could get hammered and get a -4 if they get beat 5-0. It's just a protection mechanism, having them in midfield. The worst that you can probably do is if they get sent off, which is very unlikely, or a -1 if they get a yellow card. And being the prices that they are, they're less likely to go down in value if they get a 0
Yeah.
rating, 0 points, that is. But the rest of the team, basically Salah, Kane, Mahrez, Cancelo, Robertson, Nathan Ake, Alisson, Sessegnon, Saka, they're all teams that are in Europe, so those players are going to be getting a good amount of fixtures going forwards.
Cool. Nice one. Thank you.
I
And what
see-
about
I
you,
see
Ben?
you didn't-
Go
I
on.
see you didn't go for Connor's pick of Almiron instead of Iwobi then.
I was thinking of Almiron, however, Iwobi was in my mind before the Almiron came up. Now, if I did go with Connor's pick of Almiron, I'd have had 3 points more and potentially could get a small rise out of it next week. Unfortunately, not, and I'm left. Now I'm left with a dilemma because Iwobi scored 0 points. However, if he does go down, he's not going to go down much. But the thing is, if I want to take him out, I could put there's like a midfielder for Bournemouth that scored. I could put him in. He's 500,000 less. He'll go up by 0.3, so I'd be 0.3 better off. But then Bournemouth have got hard games going forwards, but Everton have got good games, so I'll probably leave Iwobi in and see how it goes.
Lerma's a very defensive midfielder, so I was surprised to see him on the score sheet. Also, I've seen you've gone. Sorry, mate.
No, sorry, I was just saying it was a good goal.
Yeah,
that he scored.
Yeah,
fantastic goal. Also, about Neves, he's on penalties as well for Wolves now that Jimenez is injured. So that's one.
That was my thinking behind it.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about Neto and various other players, but that's the reason why Neves is in there. He's a starter for Wolves, and yes, he is in midfield and he doesn't really get up much, but I saw that he took a penalty in pre-season and that Jimenez is out for about 6 weeks, so that's the reason why he's there.
Yeah. Also, I noticed you've gone for the expensive goalkeeper. I'm pro cheap keepers, isn't I? On the last pod.
Yes, you are. Now, the thing is, with my defence, I'm hoping that Liverpool and Man City continue where they left off last season and they really give it a good go from the start. And they were the two teams that were just keeping clean sheet after clean sheet. And what I really do want is I want to have a couple of Liverpool and a couple of Man City in there, because if those clean sheets do come running in, I want to take full advantage of it. I don't really want to put an enabler goalkeeper in there. The thing is, all my back line, including the goalkeeper, are playing in Europe. So if they keep scoring, they'll and keeping clean sheets, they will keep going up in value slowly. And I try and use my two enablers in midfield to change them around as and when to take advantage of price rises.
Yep.
It's just too expensive getting a Liverpool defender. It's more than 4.5 million to get any of the other Liverpool defenders in there. And unlike the other teams that will switch the wing backs, Liverpool generally tend to don't give Trent and Robertson rest. They normally play the full game.
Cool. What about your team, Ben? How's that getting on?
Yeah, 50 points this week, my pod team.
Yay.
Yeah, not too bad. I think Haaland helped me out there, 18 points at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, I've gone big up front, Salah, Haaland, Kane. And then in midfield, I've got Saka. He got 2 points, didn't get a 7 rating, but he got an assist for an own goal. Sancho, he might be on the chopping block. He didn't look too good at the weekend.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah.
And then I got 2 enablers in midfield. Mbeumo, 3 points, so might go up a little bit, maybe 0.1. Lingard got a 0. And then in defence, I've got Sessegnon, 7 points. Alexander-Arnold, -1. And Cancelo, 7 points. And in goal, I went for the enabler goalie, the cheapest starting goalie in from a decent side. Well, I say decent, but not from the promoted teams. Mesley at 1.5 million. He got me a 7 rating, so got 3 points for him. I'm really happy with that. Got Wolves next. Not Wolves next, has he? Who's he got? Who's played? Leeds have Southampton next, so I'll keep him
Could
for
be
another
some more
week.
points there. Southampton not looking brilliant at the moment. Yep, not a bad shout.
Yeah.
Oh, we should probably just skip past my team because it had an absolute disaster. So the team that I picked for the podcast is very heavy. It will rely heavily on Spurs and Liverpool to get defensive returns. So because I've gone for a Spurs triple up of Lloris, Doherty, and Sessegnon, and I've got Trent and Robertson in there as well. So literally,
It's nice that.
apart from Sessegnon, I've got -1s from my two Liverpool players. Nothing from Doherty, who only came on for about 6 minutes. Nothing from Lloris. So I've put myself on the back foot there. But next week, that could completely turn around. I'm not planning right now to be making defensive transfers. I'm more likely to make changes in my midfield and up top. In midfield, I've got Sancho. Again, like you said, Ben, a bit worried about Man United. They just didn't look at it at all. So he's, like you said, on the chopping block. And Buemo, same popular enabler, only 2 million, 3 points. Luis Diaz got me nothing, although he could have easily come away with a goal. Up top, I've got Salah, 8 points, Kane, 3, and Jesus, 3. No Haaland, no Nunez. I have them in lots of other sides, but so I need to going to be thinking hard about what I'm going to do with this team. I do think Haaland. I've got to try and probably get Haaland in there somehow. After they've got Bournemouth next, haven't they? That could be a cricket score, you'd think. Lots to ponder. 22 points in total. Absolute shocker.
Desmond.
Go on.
Desmond Tutu.
Yeah.
It could be a different story at the end of this week. Spurs and Liverpool could keep clean sheets, and City and Chelsea, they might let a goal in.
Yeah, I wish there were midweek games. I've got to wait till the weekend now to sort of hopefully pick up some more points. But there you go.
Are you worried about not having any Man City coverage then?
I think I'm probably going to see if I can get Haaland in there, to be fair. For sure. Yeah. So before we go on to the listener questions, I just want to read out the new patrons. Thanks for joining us, guys. We've got Paul Howlin, Michael Froggatt, Charles Lawson, Mark Warner, Flowerpot Man, Tom Gledhill, Matt Williams, Ollie Davis, and Rickster. Right, moving on to the listener questions. We've got a couple of questions about Kulusevski, unsurprisingly, after his weekend performance. We've got one from Wadey. Kulusevski ended last season a beast. Looked amazing again yesterday. Surely his current price has to be too good not to be put in. At least I'm thinking he's a set and forget already. Opinions on the pod, please, fellas. And we've got Aman Tatner also saying, is it worth bringing in Kulusevski even though they meet Chelsea next week and he will still rise in price if he blanks in that game? What do you think, Ben? Kulusevski?
Well, if looking at the fixtures, Chelsea's a tough game, but you'd fancy them to do well against Chelsea. Like, you won't be surprised if Tottenham beats Chelsea. Say, for example, I've got Sancho there, 3 million, and Kulusevski's 3.5 at the moment. The only way I'm probably going to get Kulusevski now is if I bring him in on Thursday. I've got $500,000 in the bank, so that's probably the only way I'm going to get him in. The only thing is, got to be wary that Richarlison's going to be taking minutes off him. I would imagine because he's coming back from suspension for the next game.
Yeah, that's the reason I didn't put Kulusevski in the first place. I thought it was a good option, but I was worried about that rotation. But his performance was so
Yeah,
good. I'm now thinking that might be a mistake. What do you think, Andy? Did you watch Kulusevski's performance at the weekend?
I most certainly did, and he had a fantastic game. A slight curveball to what you fellas have just said, though. Richarlison, I think he normally plays left forward.
yeah,
So is he going to be sort of like taking minutes away from Son because Kulusevski's down the right side? With regards to the question, does he need to come in? Well, it all depends on who you've got in midfield because let's just say that you've got De Bruyne, Diaz and Mahrez and you're going for a 4-3-3 formation. Are you going to take any of them out to put Kulusevski in? And do you expect them to score less points than Kulusevski is going to score for the rest of the season? So, yeah, it all depends. It's not just Kulusevski that's done well, on the first game day. There's also other ones that are sort of like lowish in value around that point. You've got Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. He's got 13 points with a star man, scored a goal. Gross scored a couple against Man U for Bournemouth. He's only 2 million. Jack Harrison, he got an assist and a star man, was it? Playing for Leeds United. I like him as a player. He's a good winger. James Ward-Prowse, 4 million. Prodence for Wolves. Kante for Chelsea. He's got 8 points. I think he got Starman, didn't he, that game? Josh Da Silva for Brentford. So there's lots of midfielders that have actually scored points in the first week. So you could actually say that for all of them. My advice would be, well, what I'm thinking of doing is possibly just waiting and seeing. But I do have Kulusevski in other sides. So, like I say, if you want to get up there into the top 100 or even win the thing, you have to have various different options. So I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary for him to come in.
So we've got quite a few questions this week about patience and whether we should jump ship on certain players or hold for now. We've got 4 here. We've got Connor. He says, splurge a transfer or two for price rises or sit tight with your team for another week and then assess the situation. Amin Tatner said, how long do we keep a high-valued asset for, i.e. Sterling, if they're not performing? Do you absorb the price drops and wait for a return to form, or do you move them on before they drop? David said, is it worth using up transfers now and jump off the enablers that haven't worked in game week 1, or should we stay patient? For me, Doherty didn't work out and will probably drop before playing Chelsea next week. Martinez conceded a couple in an average-looking Villa side. My question is, Lee Hooper said, my question is, should we hold back transfers until we have a bit more info? I feel like one game is too early to be jumping off the likes of Kane, etc. And I don't want to end up the same mess as last year, blowing all my transfers early. What do you think, Andy?
Well, that's quite a few questions there. I'll try and remember. They're probably going to come, and my answer will come back in a different order to how you've answered them. It's just how I remember them. Well, first and foremost, there was something with regards to Liverpool's defence. I don't think people should be worrying about Liverpool's defence after just one game. One thing that I was impressed about in the first week was how well Fulham were actually playing, and they seem to be playing towards Mitrovic as the one that guides them. He seems to be the one that sort of like pulls the team forward and grabs the game by the scruff of the neck. He is a bit of a big machine, and he did put Virgil van Dijk into a bit of trouble a couple of times during the match. So 40 goals in the Championship, that's some going, you know. So is it really a shock that Liverpool have let in a goal or two to a man of that stature? Is a big unit, and yeah, he can bully people. Liverpool have got Palace next as well, so you know if they concede a couple of goals against Palace, then maybe start worrying them. But I wouldn't worry too much about them then. Now, he's talked about. I think he talked about jumping ship or holding players. It all depends on the makeup of your squad. You know, if you've got lots of risky players in your squad, then maybe it's a good idea to jump off some of them. But if you expect the players that are in your team to do good by the time the end of the season comes, then it's kind of a little bit early to start thinking, I need to jump off this player, I need to jump off that player. So there's not really much of an urgency, you know, to jump ship. Unless you're going for price rises and you're worried about your team value diminishing. With regarding transfers or sitting tight, splooging transfers, it all depends on the scenario. If you've got Kane, he's got 3 points, so you don't want to splooge transfers taking Kane out. He might not go, he's got 3 points, so he might not go down by 0.3, he might go down by 0.1, he might keep the same value. Trent Alexander-Arnold, you know, some people have been saying, should we get Cancelo in for him? That's something, you know, like if you wanted to splooge on that one, it's not necessarily a bad idea because Trent is going to go down in value. But Cancelo could get a rise because he's obviously got a clean sheet. But the thing is, both Trent and Cancelo, you would expect to be the top 2 performing defenders at the end of the season. So, yeah, if you did want to splooge a transfer on that, it's not necessarily a bad idea. But like I say, Man City could let a goal in next game, and then you could be thinking, oh, we need to get back on Trent. So, yeah, it's probably better to sit tight. Bruno Fernandes, Kulusevski. If you want to take Fernandes out, for instance, for Kulusevski, well, Kulusevski looks really good. Man U looks still like they're in disarray. Similar sort of scenario to last season. So that's a good one that you'd want to sort of like splooge on. But yeah, in general, I would say sit tight unless you see something like a Trent Alexander-Arnold to Cancelo where you could gain value. But in the grand scheme of things, you would actually do just as well out of changing from one to another. I think there's one other thing that I can remember. Was it how long to keep a high-priced value asset? Well, if you've got an enabler in a good team, do they have a good run of fixtures? You know, you might want to jump off. I think he said, was it
Sterling?
Sterling, yeah, jump off Sterling. Sterling's in a good team. Yeah, he's not really scored anything for the first game, but if you wanted to take Sterling out, I'd want to take Sterling out for somebody that's cheaper. So, say Kulusevski again. You know, you could take him out and take some money for somebody else. But the only thing is, once you start doing that and taking higher value players out and spreading the value around the team, it's going to be very difficult for you to get those players back in one transfer. So you're going to have to be making 2-3 transfers to sort your team out again. So to me, it's kind of a waste of your transfers, basically. To jump off enablers unless there's a good reason for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think my take on this would be, you know, some of the defensive assets, you can't expect them to get a clean sheet every week. If you've got Trent in and he's got a -1, at the end of the season he's going to be doing well. It's some of the other players that I think might be worth jumping ship on. We've looked at Man United. They look awful. If you've got any of their assets, I think I wouldn't say jumping off them was a bad move, because I think it's going to take Ten Hag a lot longer to fix those issues than he's not going to fix it in one game week. I think that's a completely different scenario to say the Liverpool defence or the Spurs defence, for instance. So it does depend on which players you're talking about as to how much patience you should have. If I personally don't believe, like I said, Man United are going to fix this next game week. Therefore, it probably makes sense to move off of them. Liverpool defenders, I'm not touching those guys. They're going to get they'll be some of the highest point scorers at the end of the season, I'm sure. Any further thoughts on this one, Ben, in terms of patience with your transfers?
I think you two covered that pretty well. Yeah, pretty much stay on the Liverpool defenders. I won't be jumping off Trent to move to Cancelo. I just think he's going to be up there at the end of the season. Next week he could get an 18-pointer, and then Cancelo could get a -1 after Man City's gone and won 5-1, and he's got a booking and he's conceded a goal. Like the one that's really tempting me is that Haaland. So if you had Kane and you've already got, say for example, Jesus and Salah, and Haaland's playing Bournemouth, that's just a big tempt to that. So you could gain some value on that. So Haaland could go up 0.3, Kane might go down -1, might stay the same. So you're like gaining $1 million there. You're getting $500,000 in the bank, and you're getting like $500,000 on the value of the player. And obviously Kane's playing Chelsea.
What about Jesus and Nunez, for instance? Would you jump ship would you jump from Jesus to Nunez, do you think?
In an ideal world, I'd stay on Jesus because I think he's got great fixtures and he's the main man at Arsenal. Nunez, if you've got Salah in your team, you can sort of cover that with Salah, and if you've already got Trent as well. But if you've got 10 teams, go ahead and do it in a couple if you want. I don't mind it. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it, like. But yeah, Jesus looks good for Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I've got a feeling Nunez is going to be right up there at the end of the season. Yeah. Jesus played well. They've got good fixtures, like you're saying. I'm getting itchy feet on that one already, although I already do have a spread in my teams. So it's the question for me is, do I go all in, if you like, on moving to Nunez? But something to think about.
Yeah, probably for that Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
Well, is it game week 3? Liverpool play on.
That's correct. Yeah. I had I made one of my teams because there's been such a talk about Bournemouth getting hammered by everybody. I made a team up of Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Aston Villa players. First game week, Villa players have done nothing. So, and Bournemouth play quite well. So there could be some surprises there.
So Villa do tend to play a hell of a lot better at home. I think last year away they were very poor. So I think if you've got Villa players, it probably makes sense to stick with them to see what happens in the home game before jumping ship on those ones, I think.
Yeah, I think they're playing Everton, aren't they, next? So
Everton,
yeah. Aman Tatner said, which enablers less than 2.5 million have caught your eye and you'll be looking to bring in if you haven't already got them? Andy?
Enablers for 2.5. I just need to load a screen up because I've got some enablers on there. But basically, while it's loading up, there are some enablers around that price point. You need to look to see whether the ones that are playing in Europe are the ones that you could bring in, because they're the ones that will have the bigger fixture volume. So you've got players like Sessegnon this weekend who scored a goal. Zinchenko, he's obviously done quite well in his first game for Arsenal.
3.5 million though doesn't meet the criteria, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah, you're right there. Sorry.
Yeah, you're off.
I think William Saliba would fit nicely into that category.
Absolutely, yeah, the Arsenal player, he would fit in there. So there's a couple there, and no, Newcastle are not in there. Cucurella, he's only 5.5 million above, but he looks like he's going to be playing regularly for Chelsea as well. So yeah, my answer to the question is just basically try and get people in that are playing in Europe and take advantage of the fixture volume. You've also got West Ham as well, which I forgot to mention, because obviously you've got Cresswell for West Ham. They've had the hard game now to start the season off against City, and they've got a couple of easy games in the Conference League, and the games are not necessarily that bad in the Premier League either.
Yeah. Ben, have you got any 2.5 or less that have caught your eye?
Yeah, like you covered pretty much all of them. Saliba, Sessegnon. I've got in a few teams. I've got Saliba in a few teams, but I'm thinking of bringing him into more teams. Cresswell, because he's got 2 double game weeks, hopefully, because if Cresswell plays in Europe, it looks like he will, because West Ham have got loads of injuries at the back. And if you're going to bring Cresswell and wait till after the price rises and drops, because he should go down, and get him for a bit cheaper. Also,
I hadn't thought about that one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Also, Areola, keeper for West Ham, he come on at the weekend for Fabianski, who's injured, so he looks like he's going to play 2 games the next 2 weeks. And he should come down in price.
What price is he?
He's 2 million at the moment, so he could be my jump from Meslier to Areola if he goes down a couple of $100,000. 2 million at the moment.
It's not a bad shout. If Fabianski's out, there's a good chance he's going to play those extra couple of games, so you could get a 4 for 2 on a lot of sides. Yeah, I like that. I'm surprised you didn't mention KDH, Ben. What do you think of him as an option?
Yeah, he's class player. I'm really expecting a big season from him this year. Playing in an advanced role as well this season, with Maddison playing in a front 3 now. So yeah, takes a few set pieces, likes a shot. Yeah, looking forward to watching him play this year. What about you, mate?
Cool. Well, I think you guys have covered it pretty well. I've got Martinelli written down as well. It's easy to forget him because we're so focused on those heavy hitters up top, and I'm not convinced there is a space for him. But he did well this weekend. He's only 2.5 million. Got a nice 8-point haul. Certainly one to consider for some teams, I think, at 2.5 million. Going to be rising on Friday morning, no doubt. So yeah, that's the only one I had that you guys hadn't mentioned. I think that really stood out for me.
I think he's one if you've got him in at the start of the season, keep him.
Moving on.
It's a bit of a delay, I think, James.
David 87's been on. Who's going to be making the move from Kane to Haaland from week 2? Are you going to, guys? Andy? You're going to be doing that in any teams? Do you think?
Well, I have Haaland in a couple of teams. I have Kane in more teams than I do with Haaland. But the way that I look at it is now, obviously, Haaland scored 2 goals in the first game. Bournemouth played okay in their first game, so obviously they've got to come up against City. The reason why people have moved from Kane to Haaland is because they're expecting Haaland to score against Bournemouth and Kane to not get anything against Chelsea. However, Kane can get goals in any game. So I think of a question like, now, let's put Cucurella in my side from Chelsea. Now it's like, well, do you really want to put Cucurella in this side? Because Kane and Son are coming to town. They could quite easily score a goal and he might not get anything. So you've got to kind of flip the question and play devil's advocate with yourself. Yeah. And I've spread my players around my teams. So do I really at this point want to be going all Haaland? Because if Kane could easily score a hat-trick against Chelsea, any team can have a bad game. Liverpool let 2 goals in against Mitrovic, for instance. So, like I say, you've put Kane in your side for a reason. I wouldn't be going too hasty. If you haven't got Haaland in any of your sides, then maybe, you want to try and put Haaland in a couple of your sides because you've got 10 sides to go with. But I wouldn't be doing anything too hasty with moving Kane out and Haaland back in.
Cool. I think, I mean, it's a tricky one. Obviously, there's probably going to be a price swing there. I.e., Kane might drop, Haaland might go. Haaland might go up, Kane might go down. So I can see it. If you don't have Haaland at all in any sides, I think it might be worth doing it. But if you've got a spread, if you've got 10 teams and they're already spread around, I would definitely keep Kane in a few.
Sorry, James. James, just one thing that I wanted to just add there. If you have 2 players up front and you're playing with a 4-4-2 formation, for instance, there is a good way to get Haaland into your side and take advantage of the price rises. So let's just say, for instance, you have a midfielder that's 5 million and a midfielder that's 5.5, say Mahrez, for instance, who's not got anything. You could take advantage of the price rises there. You could put Kulusevski in as a cheaper option to Mahrez, and then the 5 million midfielder could go to Haaland at 7 million. So that way you'd get Haaland in. It costs you 2 transfers, but you would get the advantage of the price rises as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Anything to add on this one, Ben?
I've got Haaland in a few teams. I've got Kane in a few teams, but I definitely want to get the price rise on Haaland, and that fixture against Bournemouth next week is a bit of a beaut. So I'm going to be doing it in a few teams, but I'll be keeping Kane in a couple as well. So like I say, you're going to gain value, like I've covered before. You're going to gain value on Haaland, and Kane might go down.
Yeah,
looks like a beast. What do you think?
I'm going to make that move, I think, in a few sides. But obviously not all of them. But certainly we'll be looking at that move to gain some value. And Haaland's obviously he's going to get so many chances in that City side that he could literally go crazy this year, couldn't he?
Fixtures are beautiful for City from now on as well.
Go on, Andy. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying I agree. You know, Haaland, he does look like a beast, very strong. And one thing that I did notice was there was a little bit less passing from Man City, and they were playing a lot more directly. There were a lot more crosses coming in from the extremities. You know, taking it out. They do that, but a lot of the time they actually cross the ball to the back of the penalty area for somebody that's running in. Whereas the game that they played against West Ham, they were actually taking it out to the byline and crossing it high for Haaland to head the ball in. So, they do seem to be playing to try and get him into the goals, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Cancelo and Walker were playing effectively as wingers in that game, weren't they? And it totally outfoxed West Ham. I think in the press conference afterwards, Moyes was like, hold hands up, they were too good. They changed their tactics from last year we competed against them last year, but this year, with the fullbacks being pushed so far forward effectively into midfield, they just couldn't deal with it. Any further thoughts on that one, Ben?
No, covered it well, mate.
Amantatna said, "Got Sancho in my team. Worth keeping, or should I move on?" I think we covered this to an extent, but what's your thoughts on Sancho, Andy?
I have Sancho in a couple of teams. He's getting moved on. It's as simple as that. The thing is, last season he's come in £100 million. He's had a full season and he hasn't been. There's something wrong at Man U. I've no idea what's wrong. Can't work it out. It might be something to do with Ronaldo, being there. And I thought in pre-season, the team seemed to be playing really well and scoring lots of goals. Sancho, Rashford, Martial, they were sort of like instrumental in the pre-season friendlies. But as soon as it comes to the business time where they need to play a proper game, they seem to have all gone missing. So any Man U assets that I've got, I seriously have to think of moving them on. The answer to that question is just get him out. Maybe take advantage of some kind of price rise that you might be able to get from somebody else that's done well. If you've got an extra, if you've got an extra 0.5 million, you can put Kulusevski in. Easy move.
Darren Frank said, "Ben, James, I would be interested in any early transfer thoughts you have on your pod teams prior to Friday. I also have Mahrez at 5.5 and Sancho at 3. Would you be looking at alternatives at this stage?" Ben?
Yeah, it's a tough one on Mahrez because he was on the bench at the weekend, but you know what he's like. He can just play 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you score a goal and get an assist. And he's a bit more safer when we have a double game week in the Champions League, because if you don't play in the league, he usually plays in the Champions League. So, but yeah, if you're looking to bring Haaland in, like Andy said before, you could do the double transfer, use the money from Mahrez and Sancho, and downgrade to a cheaper midfielder and bring in Haaland, for example, or Nunez. Or you bring KDH. And on regards my team, I'll have a quick look. I've got Sancho in my team, and I'm looking at Kulusevski. Price rise before the price rise on Thursday. I think that's about it, really. I'm happy with my back line. Obviously, I'll keep an eye on Areola. See what his price is on Friday. And I'm happy with my team, I think. Maybe try get Bowen in somehow, but I don't think I can afford him at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Ben. I'm going to skip the questions around switching Cancelo and Trent, because I think we've sort of covered that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on to Seth Osborne's question. Is it okay to cry after one game week? I'll answer this. It's fine, mate. Just let it all out. Mental health's important. I think sometimes it's good to have a good cry. Aman Tatner says, "Would you buy Maguire if he cost $2 million?" Andy?
I would buy Maguire if he cost $2 million and played for any team other than Manchester United. That is my answer.
Ben, what do you think?
Right. Maguire, $2 million. You think, $2 million, you think that's good price for an enabler, but they just look absolutely atrocious at the moment, don't they? I would not buy Maguire $2 million. You don't know how many goals they're going to concede at the moment. What do you think, James?
2 million, I don't know, I might consider him, but they don't look good, do they? I'd need to see a little bit of an improvement there, I think, before I would even consider him at that.
He used to be such a good player as well in Dream Team, Starman Magnet, score goals, but I don't know what's happened.
Tomo's been on, missed the deadline, but going to chance my arm just in case. You're lucky, Tomo. I was in a good mood when I was doing the questions earlier. He says, Kane, Salah, Haaland look like a great front three, but Kane seems to be sitting deep and blanked yesterday. Would you consider moving Kane to Nunez and use the money to beef up your budget?
Well, like you say, I can understand why he's thinking of going Kane to Nunez and having Nunez and Salah up front, because Salah and Mane worked very well towards the back end of the season when Salah wasn't picking up as many points as like he was at the beginning of the season, and Mane sort of like came through as a shining star. One word of caution that I would say though. He's talking about taking Kane out, putting Nunez in, and using the money to beef up enablers in midfield. The players that you have in those prime positions, they're there because you want them there all season, because over the season they're going to score a massive amount of points. If that move that he makes goes wrong, for instance, let's just say Jota comes back from injury, or you've also got Bobby Firmino. What happens if he scores a couple in the next 2 games? They're going to be getting subbed on and off. If that goes wrong, he's made that transfer and then wants to go back to Kane. He's going to have to make multiple transfers to fix that problem that he's created by doing that transfer. But the transfer after the first game week, it looks like it's a good shout. Looks like you're going to take advantage of a price rise. But I'd be wary about doing it.
Martin Beasley said, who do you wish you'd picked up for week 1 that you didn't select? Ben, any players that you didn't put in that you wish you had after seeing week 1's results?
Do you know what, Ben? I totally agree with you. I had Maddison in a few teams and I took him out. As soon as there was rumours of him, Newcastle putting a bid in for him and this, that and the other, sometimes when players' heads get turned, they don't necessarily perform well. So I thought for 5 million, I'd rather have somebody else. But with regards to who do I wish I had? After the first week, I wish I had Haaland, Mitrovic, Nunez, Kulusevski, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Pascal Gross, Harrison for Leeds, Shah, Zinchenko, Kelly, and Ramsdale. If I had all those players, if I'd have picked them all, I'd have had 152 points, and I would have been 45 points clear of the highest scoring person in the dream team overall. But seriously, we've got 10 teams, haven't we? So all of the players that have done well this week, we've probably got them in 1 or 2 teams anyway. But out of the ones that have done well, I would say Kulusevski, Nunez, and Ramsdale. Those are the ones that I wish I'd have put in.
And finally, we have a late breaking question from Dream Team Tonic Tony. He missed the deadline, but I thought I'd cut him a slack. Yeah, it's out of order, but we'll let him slip in here. He said, I hope I'm not too late for a question for the podcast. Name me a player that wasn't on your radar before the first round of games, but they are firmly there now. And big up to Sessignon. Hope you all had a bit of him at 2 million. Yeah, congrats to Tony on his Sessignon pick last week. I think quite a few of us jumped on him after what Tony had said, so we'll give him credit for that one. Andy, any player that wasn't on your radar before the first round of games, but is firmly there now?
We've already done a little bit of talking about him on this pod. Mitrovic, I didn't think of putting him in any of my teams, and I haven't put him in any of my teams. However, after that first game that he's played, he's firmly on my radar now, because basically he's kind of the focal point for Fulham. Fulham are playing, to his strengths, and he's being given game time now, obviously, because of the type of player that he is. The only thing that I'm worried about is if his supply gets cut off, teams will work out how Fulham play to try and get the ball to him for him to score. And he's dangerous on his own as a single player. But if you can stop the ball from getting to him, then it won't really be as much of a danger. So, yes, he's on my radar, but I am wary just in case his supply does get cut off.
Well, the amount of drafting and article writing I did in pre-season, I don't think there were too many off the radar. There's one player that stood out, though, for me that I really knew nothing about, and that's Brendan Aronson of Leeds. He looked amazing on Match of the Day. I'll be keeping my eye on him. I'm not necessarily thinking he's a dream team asset, but you never know. More for perhaps the other formats, but he looked electric and quite an exciting player to watch. And I didn't know anything about him. I'll hold my hands up. So not on the radar, but now looking at him to see if he might be an asset for us. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. I'm hoping Tony will be back soon because I think I've got quite a bit of editing to do. If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/Dream Team Tonic. Don't forget to keep an eye out for Connor's Dream Team blog on the website. Anything to add, chaps, before we go?
No. I think it's been a good pod. Really enjoyed being on. Thanks a lot for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's been a pleasure. And at that point, I will say good night.
Good night.